Good day to you, Radio Practicum students. I'm sorry I can't be with you today, but it is for professional reasons. I'm en route to a conference called the Broadcast Education Association, where I have organized a panel. I'm a moderator on that panel, meaning I'm introducing people, and I'm also a presenter on that panel. And the panel itself is on the use of big data in media, the use of data that's collected by the internet, essentially through cell phones and laptops and social media, using Facebook, using Twitter, using Instagram, Snapchat. Every time you type a keystroke, you're providing big data. How are those data are plural, how are those data being used in media? That's what the panel is on. My particular paper is on the focused self, as I call it. The focused self, it's a psychological construct that I put together to explain why people work for free on the internet, why they type away all day long, which is what people do on all their social media platforms, TikTok included, and they're working for free in most cases. If you want to know more about it, I'm happy to talk to you about it. But for today, I've set up a video instructor lecture to talk about our two subjects, which are revolving around two subjects that are very much related to each other. They are research and promotion. Research and promotion, they go hand in hand. That's why I sequence them together. Let's talk about why you need research at a radio station to begin with. You need research, first of all, because you're selling advertising time all day long. And you need the research that backs up who your audience is, who your listeners are, so that when you go out to visit those car dealerships and those cell phone companies that you're contacting over the phone, that you have the numbers of the kinds of people who are listening to your station. That's what eventually convinces advertisers to hand over money. And there are two key reasons that you do conduct research, because you generate some figures here. I've got an old-fashioned piece of paper here. Even if it's in reverse on your video here, I can explain it pretty simply. You've got a rating and a share. You know those two concepts, right? A rating and a share. You've heard them before as in Nielsen ratings, right? Let's take them on. They're mathematical concepts that are constructed to get to know the listeners of a radio station. The rating, the first one, is the number. It's the number you can read across the top right here. It's the number of listeners that you have. Number of listeners to a radio station, number of listeners to a program, number of listeners to a block of time, like Mondays, 5 o'clock till 8. Number of listeners in all different shapes and forms. You can refine that further, but it's number of listeners, and then that is divided by the number of radio receivers that are available in the geographic area where you're conducting your research. So in other words, the signal range of the radio station. In the case of WESS, that signal range is about 50 miles, depending on which way you go. We got blocked out by mountains, but we also flow way up the riverbed of the Delaware as well. So it depends, but that's what we're talking about. It's the number of listeners, the rating, over the available radio sets, whether they are turned on or off. So that's how you get the rating. The share is a similar concept. We're going to compare them and then show you the math on them. So the share is the same. It's the number of listeners, but this time it's over the radio stations that are turned on to any program at all. It doesn't matter whether it's the particular program that you're trying to measure or the particular DJ or the particular block of time. It just means that they're turned on. And that number is always going to be lower, right, than the number of radio sets available. This then allows us to calculate these two figures. So if we plug in some imaginary figures here and keeping it simplistic just so that we understand it, of course these figures would be in the hundreds or thousands depending on if you're in a large market, a major market I should say, major market or a medium market such as Allentown, Bethlehem, Scranton, Wilkes-Barre, or a small market such as a Stroudsburg. The numbers are going to be in the hundreds and thousands, right? But to make it simple, we've got rating here. So we've got 10, let's say we have 10 listeners to a particular station. Let's say it's WESS. And there are 100 radio receivers that are available in the county where WESS is being received. That gives us 0.10. And to simplify it for the account executives who go out on the road, it's converted by moving the decimal place two periods or two numbers, I should say, over, and that gives you a rating of 10. A rating of 10. And now let's look at a share. A share, let's say that we have 10 listeners. We have the same number of listeners, right? But we have a different number of radio, a different denominator, if you want to look at it mathematically, of 80 sets that are turned on. Not all of them are turned on. 20 are turned off. People are sleeping. They're at work or whatever. 80 are turned on. That gives us 12.5, or that gives us 0.125 or 12.5 as a share. So the share is always higher than the rating. And what those two numbers do when you compare them together is they show whether radio listening overall is going up or down. When you start to get bigger gaps between the rating and the share, radio listening is going down. It's being infiltrated by competitors from other kinds of media content. Perhaps you have to keep an eye on that. Those are two simple statistics. There are many, many more numbers that are run in radio. They're run by the company called the Nielsen company. I mentioned them earlier. The Nielsen top 10 TV ratings. You've probably seen that before. The Super Bowl's in there, the Olympics are in there, 60 Minutes has often been in there. Yeah, that's the same company, and they're measuring radio ratings, and they're coming out with a book that each account executive is getting a hold of because the radio station is purchasing those ratings, and then those account executives are going out into their sales market areas and their client lists. They're going to visit their client lists, and they're selling them on their ability to deliver females 18 to 35 or males 18 to 54. It all depends on what the demographics of the station are, as is shown by the research. But research is also conducted by a radio station, not just by outside agencies that they hire, and they pay dearly for the Nielsen ratings. Let me tell you, it's very expensive. The local radio station here, I just have to mention, WSBG, just decided for the first time to opt out of purchasing Nielsen ratings. I don't know how it's going for that station. I don't think it's going very well because advertisers just expect to see Nielsen ratings, and now that station is trying to sell advertising time based on, I don't know what numbers they're using. At any rate, another kind of research is in-house research. Radio stations do their own research depending on the scale of the ownership. If you have a big corporation, you have all kinds of methods of gathering research data through the web, through people clicking through your website, through people answering emails, through people calling to the station, and then you get their contact information, then you can follow them. People hashtagging you can track them that way. There's all kinds of those methods on social media, but also radio stations can bring people into a radio station and conduct focus groups where they put people in circles and they allow them to talk freely about a subject that they'll just get them started on. Like, what do you think about morning teams? Oh, it's okay if it's a male and a female. I don't know, I can't stand a male and a female. I like two males. No, I don't like two females. I don't like the ads. When the ads come in, let it go around the conversation or capture that, and then that influences your programming. So you can also conduct research that way. There's call-out research too, where radio stations will call people and play what they call hooks. These are snippets of songs. They're just little bits of the most popular part of the song, just a few seconds worth, and then they go on to the next song, and the next song they're trying to capture whether somebody is open to a format change, right? So this is another reason that research is done, and aside from selling advertising to businesses, it's also done to make changes to the program format, which is also related back to advertising, because you got to have people listening in order to purchase advertising. So research is done for a lot of different reasons. And now let's move into promotions, because promotions borrows from research. They work hand in hand together. And the chief person who's working in promotions is the promotions director. Research, as I mentioned earlier, is either done by the management or it's done by outside agencies like Nielsen. But promotions is done in-house, and it's a pretty cool job if you're a creative person, if you like to do computer software related stuff with sound, with graphics, with designing billboards, with using colors, with having different media to play with, all kinds of materials to work with. A very creative job, promotions. It's basically letting people know that your radio station is there. And you're doing promotions for two purposes, one of which is to get new listeners. People get into habits, and so you try to promote your radio station to break them from those habits of whoever they're listening to give you a try. You do that through billboards, right? People driving every day. You do that through advertising on television. You do that through their social media sites. You're trying to get new listeners, but also you're doing promotions because you want to keep the listeners you have. I just heard this discussion actually yesterday at the university and talking about marketing our graduate programs to prospective students, marketing our master's programs, and some of the comments were, let's not just try and get new students. Let's keep the flow from the students that we have. And that's the same for promotions in radio. You cannot take your listeners for granted. They grow up, they move, they go through life changes. You cannot take them for granted. So promotions is also to keep current listeners. And the materials that you can use are varied. I spoke about some of them earlier. Everything that you can do on a computer, right, with sound included, and all the social media platforms that are available today, and the advantages that Instagram has over Snapchat, over TikTok, Facebook, etc. You have that, but you're working with traditional materials too, like t-shirts. You're working with bumper stickers still. You're working with coffee mugs. You're working with remotes at locations where you go to a car dealership and you set up a tent, and you hand out free things, and you have a contest, and you bring a well-known radio personality, and then also the car dealership is giving a breakout to people who come out to the dealership. They're giving a rebate, and it's all working together because the car dealership is paying for it, and you're sponsoring your program by mentioning the car dealership. That's how promotions work. There's a lot of bartering that goes on. You're not just necessarily promoting the station by using the resources you have at a radio station. You're also trading. You're trading with Camelback so that Camelback mentions your radio station, and when they're giving away their tickets, maybe even your station is printed on their tickets, and vice versa. You're mentioning Camelback when you're doing ticket giveaways. You're mentioning the ski resort. So that then leads us to our final discussion about promotions, and that is there is a major advantage to being in promotions and being a media organization and being a broadcast organization. And that advantage is you get to use your own product to promote itself. In other words, the on-air content. And not many businesses can do that. If you're a lawnmower business, a landscaping business, if you will, you have to purchase advertising if you want to put it out there, right? You can use your own signal if you're a radio station, so you have a lot of on-air advertising. That's why you give out call letters. That's why you have branded names and slogans for stations like Hot 96 or Hot Mix 96, etc. That's why you have those kinds of slogans, because you're doing on-air promotion. You're promoting your station. You're promoting what's coming up. Don't go away, because coming up next, I'm going to be giving away some tickets. You're using your on-air signal. Big advantage for radio stations. And then you also have the off-air promotions, the bus benches, the billboards, the t-shirts, the bumper stickers, the flyers, the emails, the websites. All of that is off-air stuff. That then will wrap up promotions and research and how well they go together because they are integrated in radio's business pursuits. Have a great day.